Hey everybody, welcome to another installment of the Rambling Film Group podcast. My name is Charles. With me I have Kelsey, and then remotely we got Cy with us as always.
Hey everybody.
Today we're doing a little bit of, I guess we're doing reviews, but like just kind of like a special point of reviews. These aren't films that came out recently, but it's speaking towards a group, or not a group, but a whole type of entertainment that we haven't covered as much as we'd like to, at least in our like podcasts and everything. Sai especially does a very good job of posting about it on the Facebook page. But that's anime. Sai is a huge anime fan. We're a little bit more casual, but that's mostly because we never really like dived into it as much as others can. Most of us, or both of us, probably just based off what we're able to watch on TV and just word of mouth and stuff we checked out. So we're trying to grow that way. He keeps introducing us to more stuff, and a kind of gateway to it is what we watched today. We watched two films. We watched Train to Busan, Korean, came out about 2016.
Mm-hmm.
Regarded super well. Enjoyed that a lot. And then we also watched the anime prequel to it, Seoul Station, today. So that's what we're going to be talking about. Just those two items, or films in different formats. But before we jump in, does anybody have like anything specific they want to bring up about it or anything? Any notes?
Really, the only thing I'll say before we really dive into it is the only reason I kind of mentioned doing these two films is Train to Busan has gained quite a little popularity here in the States. I would say like in the past year. Not only is there going to be the international sequel that's going to start production probably around January, February, obviously in Korea, but there is going to be an American remake of it. And I can't remember the exact director and writer, but it's some heavy hitters. I think it's the ones that have been involved in Annabelle, I think.
I know. I don't think he's directing, but I'm pretty sure James Wan is producing. So that's a big name involved in the process for sure.
So yeah,
I think there's some other names, but that's the one that stands out to me the most.
So yeah, I've mentioned this. Like, I'm not a huge horror person in general, so like I'm not well known in American horror, like people who direct and write it. But from what I did read, it does seem to be some really heavy hitters who have done some great things in horror stateside in the past couple of years. So it's quite interesting that this movie started internationally. Did a little bit over 90 million worldwide, 93 million I think it is, and has gotten this kind of, I don't want to say it's a cult fan base, because I think it's a little bit larger than you would call like a cult fan base, but in the States at least, I would say it's a cult fan base that is large enough to where studios and big time directors and writers are willing to kind of make their own interpretation of it. And so I thought that was interesting. And again, with the sequel coming, I figured it would be a good time that we could talk about a little bit of anime with the prequel being anime based, but also just a really intriguingly made horror film internationally. You don't get that a lot of times with international films.
True. Those are all really good points.
Yep.
Did you have anything you wanted to add?
Nope.
Get going? Okay. So do we want to just kind of talk about, because it's been out for a bit, so people have the chance to see it. I feel like we don't really need to sum up what's happened. We can just kind of share our thoughts.
So there will be spoilers.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it, there will certainly be spoilers. And I think there is still like quite a, I won't say a lot, but there's still people who haven't seen it strictly because obviously it's a Korean film. If you don't like subs, unfortunately, there's not a dubbed version, especially of the Train to Busan. I don't know if there's a dub of Seoul Station. I didn't care to check to see if there was.
We didn't check either.
And I actually think the only way to stream it is through Shudder, because I think that's just an exclusive that they have. So I think unless they offer a dub, there's not an official one out there. So what was the point I was even? I don't remember the point I was really trying to make when I started that like segment of sentences.
Oh, it was like in case we were saying spoilers. In case.
Oh, thank you. Yes, we were talking about spoilers. I was going to say, I do think there's still quite a bit of people who haven't seen it, at least stateside, who haven't seen it. So certainly, if it is something that's piqued your interest, I know Chuck, you mentioned it's kind of been in your queue for a while. Just with Netflix, it is kind of hard to like, what am I going to watch next?
Yeah, it's so hard to pick what to actually put on.
So
yeah,
if it
has been in our list for a good bit.
Yeah.
So if it's like that where you're interested and you want to go into it completely blind, there's going to be spoilers. We're going to be talking about the prequel, which is just kind of before we again dive into it. The prequel, you can watch it before or after. Like there's really no defined like it's just called the prequel, the anime prequel. There's really no information that you're given, in that.
Yeah, it's just a story that's also occurring.
It's just
and you don't even really know
like different cities dealing with the same thing, and that's it. Like it's not necessarily like linear, time speaking.
Yeah, and they don't even tell you if it happens like days before Train to Busan, if it's the same time. Because I was watching it and I'm thinking to myself, like, if this is happening before Train to Busan, why are people even like out in the public doing stuff, going to train stations? I feel like this should be big news that like it's just not discussed in the actual movie. So it's hard to tell that it's an actual prequel.
Yeah,
that's kind of the vibe that I got. I'm like, so basically, I'm like, this is happening essentially at the same time, just in different cities. That's kind of because that's the only thing that makes sense in my mind.
Yeah, that's the only way I could basically interpret it and make everything not just seem like you people are ridiculously stupid.
No wonder you're all dying.
Yeah. And then the sequel though that we are getting, it will be post Train to Busan. It will not deal with the same characters though. It will be from a different viewpoint. And I actually took some notes. Hold on. The code name for it currently is Bando, which translates to Peninsula. Which kind of gives the thought that maybe all of Korea is infected. Like, it's not just isolated areas, it is all of Korea, which makes sense, because with how Train to Busan starts, when they run the deer over, I would assume if animals are infected, and I'm assuming animals probably started the infection, it's kind of all over Korea. It's not just in this one pocket, Right. Another theory I had while I was watching it was, okay, so this clearly happens in South Korea. What if it was the North Koreans? Like, what if the end goal is to basically just shit all over North Korea, and it's to say, like, hey, this is something they could potentially do to take back Southern Korea?
I mean, there's not much to take back if that's what it is.
I mean, yeah, that's true. Or revenge. Not necessarily take back, but revenge, I guess, would be the...
That makes more sense. Yeah, revenge.
I was going to say, I feel like stuff is probably tenuous enough between those two countries. I would not think that they'd make the antagonist of, like, a big... Probably, like, their, biggest...
That's a good point.
International film.
That's a very good point. But that was just something that like popped in my head. Was like, what if the end? You find out at the end this was all started by the North Koreans. Just
that would be something.
That would be controversial.
To say the least.
Yeah, that would be extremely controversial. That would certainly make the movie even more popular than it already is, because it would then make complete international headlines.
I just thought about the interview with Seth Rogen and James Franco. If that when it went from a U.S. release, I got a feeling South Korea, they're gonna be shy away from that.
Yeah, it'd probably be actually like way worse than that.
A little bit.
Considering what you're also insinuating.
Yeah.
But again, it was just like a quick thought that, just looking down the timeline of what this could be, because I could see it going beyond just one more movie if it continues to be popular.
It will, especially if it gets success with the U.S. remake. Which, just giving my quick opinion, it's not necessary like that.
Oh yeah, it's not.
Stand on its own. There's not really anything lost in translation. You're like, if you
it's
like,
also not something where it's like it came out like decades ago and they just want to revamp it.
Right.
Yeah. It's entertaining. It's well done. It's well acted and directed.
Yeah.
Like, if you're a fan of film, especially horror film, watch it. Like, you don't see an English-speaking American actor version of it. You will enjoy that one just fine.
I'm not a horror fan, and I don't know, again, since I'm not a horror fan, I don't know how much of a limb this is, like, I'm going to be saying here, but this is probably my all-time favorite zombie movie. Train to Busan, at least. I can't think of another zombie movie that made me feel the way this one made me feel, especially relating to how they use human nature. Because a lot of zombie movies, it's more so about the gore, the carnage, and the destruction that these zombies can cause. But this one, there was actually a lot of human emotion. The main two characters, a father and a daughter, you see their story arc vastly changed throughout the movie, in a good way. And you normally, again, you don't get that a lot with horror movies in general, and especially zombie movies, because the focus is mainly on the zombies. And then on top of that, just the fact that a lot of it was very realistic. Like, how would I actually think people in the real world would react to a zombie invasion? The father's first reaction during the beginning of the movie is kind of, don't help anybody, don't talk to anybody, don't do anything. If someone needs help, you kind of just let it go. And you see that change throughout the movie, but that's a very realistic human nature kind of reaction when you are in these situations, especially ones that, it's not like a hurricane where we've heard of these things before. I'm sorry, if there's ever a zombie invasion, I don't know how likely I would be to just be like, oh, you need some help over there? Yeah, I'll come over there and help you. Nah, buddy, I'm trying to stay alive, and I don't know you.
I don't know you.
I'm sorry, the way you said I don't know you reminded me of the episode of King of the Hill when Bobby takes women's defense classes and he's getting bullied and he goes, I don't know you, that's my purse, and then kicks everybody in the nuts after he says that.
Oh, that's funny.
So the way you said it kind of made me think of that.
That's funny.
But yeah, I think they handled it very realistically, and it also didn't become a action movie, which I think a lot of zombie films fall, instead of you relying on the realism and the human nature part of how these situations can happen. They do typically turn into, how much blood can we spew? How many murders can we get off? And that didn't really happen here. I also will say this is probably my favorite type of zombie. No offense to people who like Walking Dead, but I'm sorry, slow walking zombies just aren't very scary to me. I feel like if I can, unless I'm surrounded, you don't really pose that much of a threat. But these, kind of like the last 28, or 20, what is it, last 28 days? Something like that.
20, there's a few different ones
you're thinking of.
But I think you guys...
Pretty fast, too.
Wait, what?
I was saying, you're just talking about the zombies moving fast. I was going to say in World War Z, they move pretty fast, too.
Yeah, but I think 28 Days was like the first one where I saw them. I was like, oh, okay. These might actually, yeah, like these can actually catch me. I can't just outrun you. All right. So yeah, I love that type of zombie because again, just the other ones I don't feel a personal threat unless I'm in like a wheelchair, or in my case, unless I'm in like a sickle cell crisis. I think I'm kind of good. So again, I love that aspect of it, and I love how it was shot. The fact that the majority of the film takes place on a train. That's basically all you get. There are some beautiful nature scenes, though. Like, I'll give him that. He did fantastic with the nature settings that he did decide to put in the movie. But for it to be one of those settings where, like, you're just stuck in an area for basically 2 hours, it doesn't suck. Like, I normally hate movies where I'm just in one area for that long, but he did a great job of continuing the interest and the threat level to make me feel kind of, like I was a little bit in danger if I was in that situation. But I've talked enough. I'll let you guys talk. I'm sorry.
Okay, you go. You go.
Yes, I really loved it. So we're talking about Train to Busan in case that wasn't clear, not the prequel yet. But I really, really enjoyed it. I am a big horror film fan. So I really, really enjoyed it. I don't know if it's my favorite zombie movie. I really, really enjoy World War Z. And the reasons I enjoy World War Z are pretty similar for the reasons that I enjoyed this movie, is that it's not just about blood and carnage. It is more like focused on people as opposed to just the zombies. What I do like about this one a lot, though, is I feel like with zombie movies, they either tend to really focus on just like gore for gore's sake, or if that's not it, we're trying to focus on like, how are we going to get a cure to save everybody that's left? That is not at all an issue here. I mean, I'm sure somebody out there in this universe is probably like, how are we going to get past this? But from what we see, it's a survival movie. It's just like, we just have to get somewhere safe, like now. Busan. And so I actually really enjoy that because that's something different and unique that I haven't really seen before. So it's nice to have something different where they're not just like, oh, good, we need to find a cure. Right. Great, we found a cure. And so that being like, it kind of leaves you just like a little depressed because you're like, God damn, everybody's dead. But that's good because that's how I don't need like a real strong, happy ending. Everything's going to be okay, kumbaya together in my horror films. That's not something I look for. So I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed basically all the characters for what they were trying to do. So, okay, I can't remember anybody's names, honestly, except for the little girl.
You're right.
Except for the little girl. But
nobody else's names were really said.
Yeah, her name was said so many times, like over and over. Her's the only one I know. Anyway, so I'm just going to refer to them as I see them in my mind. So, asshole dad, who's really, really horrible to start. Because like I said, like he's very much like, do not talk to anybody. Like don't do it. Like this is it. We're going to get out of here. It's just us. Like we're on our own. And I'm just like, that's such a horrible way to look at things. It's very human. It's very realistic. But in my mind, I'm just like, that breaks my heart, especially because the moments that I was thinking of most, he's interacting with like old ladies and everybody's currently safe.
The
pregnant woman and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, so like people who are not a threat, like at all, is how he's reacting this way to people. And I'm like, this guy is an ass. And so then the guy that I loved most, I don't know, superhero guy, because I don't know his name.
The dad to be, who is just, like I was telling Charles, is just the men of all men. Like, he is just fan-freaking-tastic. I turned to him and I was like, his wife just married I don't know how wonderful of a person she is, but I guarantee she married way up. Because he's so good. He was so good. And he was just, like, kind and caring, compassionate, even when everybody else is just being an asshole. He's still so good. He dies, but that sucks. And then I liked Pregnant Lady, because she's just
Plus, she's a champ and a half for like being pregnant, running around, doing all of that stuff. She is an absolute champ. That and she was hauling ass. Like she's fast. I feel like if I am that pregnant, I am not moving that quickly. Like you know what I mean?
You got
like
some adrenaline.
You do have adrenaline, but at some point,
I'm sorry that you carrying a baby. I'd be like, I'm tapping out. All right, look.
That's what I'm just saying. It is. That's a pretty adrenaline pumping situation.
No, it is. It definitely is. It's just like she's still just a champ. And then like my other favorite character, not for like who he is good, was just the
baseball kid.
No, the baseball kid was good too, but no, just like the scum of all scum. I don't know his name.
You said
the real.
My favorite character, as in like a good. Like he is the embodiment of like all bad things.
Oh yeah,
businessman.
Yeah, the businessman. I don't know. He's absolute scum. Like he is just really, really, really horrible. And I can't. If you haven't seen the movie, I cannot express how incredibly horrible, especially compared to how. Not necessarily even self-sacrificing, but just how willing other people are to help. Because not everybody's necessarily self-sacrificing. Some of them are. They definitely are. But some of them are just like, all right, everybody, like, let's stick together. Like, let's go. Like the baseball kid and then, like, the girl and stuff, you know? Not necessarily self-sacrificing, but just still, like, not willing to just commit murder to save yourself. You know?
Yeah. And, okay,
that was just, like, horrible.
So before you go on with the businessman, I also have to applaud the writer, the director, like whoever decided to do this. They actually make you care about him just a tiny little bit at the end of the movie when you find out that like he's really like yes he's an ass. He is the epitome of assholes. But he is doing this stuff for a reason, and the reason is to get to his mother. So like when you hear that, you're like, okay. I'm kind of okay with some of this stuff. You're still like it. Like you have that internal, battle of okay, would you do the same things, knowing that like you're trying to protect a family member or get to a loved one. But some stuff like yes, again, he is the epitome of asshole. But the movie does do a great job of his story. That at the end there is a moment where you kind of care about him again, just a tiny bit, and you don't get that a lot again in these types of movies.
Yeah, they definitely tried to humanize him a bit
at the end there, which they desperately needed to do after all the stuff that just happened, like bam, bam, bam with this guy. So, but yes, you're right. No, that is good, and that was kind of one of my reasons. Like he was a favorite character, not because he's just so good and I enjoyed.
Oh yeah.
Watching him on screen, but because for what he was intended to be, he was done very, very well.
And it speaks to the realism of the human nature that they tried to like implement in the movie, because assholes, they have family members, they have people that they care about. Like yes, they're still assholes, but sometimes the reason why they are assholes is a little bit deeper than just face value. And that's a very realistic thing. And again, you don't get that a lot in movies, not just horror movies, but just in movies in general.
Yeah. But yeah, so that was great. And then just some of my other favorite moments are basically, I just like seeing the asshole dad and daughter's like relationship just kind of twist and grow. So that's fun because I'm always a fan of like seeing growth in characters in movies. Because to me, that's a good indicator of a well-rounded story is if your characters grow. If the story suits that. Sometimes it doesn't. Like if I'm just watching like a big action flick, I don't necessarily need to see that as much.
Do you need to see Vin Diesel become like just the greatest whatever in Fast and the Furious?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So no, certain movies no. But in my horror movies, things like that, stuff that should be more story driven, it is important for me to see stuff like that. And so I really do love that relationship. And then I'm just a sucker for dad moments in general. Like it's just all bad. So that's it. But I really, really loved it. It was it's up there on one of my favorite horror movies, just like across the board. Yeah. Period. Very, very good.
Okay, so you guys said
so much. I'm sorry.
Again, it speaks to how good the movie is.
Yeah, I know. I just say there's not much I can tread that you guys haven't already tread, and I don't want to just like.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Oh no, you're good. Like I said, I already have it in my head. I'm going to transition from this to talking about the next one, and then we can circle back around. But basically, the only real additions I had was, this is for sure that's the best zombie movie I've seen. It's probably up there for horror. Me personally, there's so many zombie movies. I keep zombies a little separate, and also I'm not a big fan of zombie stuff in general
because he's not a big fan of the gore stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I don't like whether it's horror, whether it's war films. I just Quentin Tarantino. I don't like an overindulgence to torture and violence just for the sake of the imagery of it. That's just not my thing. If it serves the story to some component, like I'll say a movie that did that very well is Fury by David Ayer.
I was say, what's that war movie?
Yeah, with all the tanks and Brad Pitt and Shia LaBeouf and everything like that. That's a gory film, but it serves the story.
Well, because it places you. Oh, that's a different context.
Yeah,
so I'm gonna stop.
But I think I communicated.
You did very
well. And everything. Well, first off, it's just not overly gory. Plain and simple, it's more just blood of anything. But everything that it does show serves the story. And I guess I'll sum it up by this: like, I haven't. Me personally, I don't. I'm struggling to think of any other instance where I've seen a horror film, and certainly a zombie-based film, that I've felt so much emotion tugging at my heartstrings in the characters. And you've definitely seen characters like this, and like we both knew that her superhero dad to be we could tell like he's not. We knew one of them was going to make it. I felt it was easy to assume that the pregnant woman is going to make it.
Yeah.
But so yeah, we could see that he probably wasn't going to. But you still, even though you saw the setup happening, you felt like the gut punch of the events going as they did, and even more so with the dad and daughter at their end, just the whole course of their relationship, and then that ending there. Yeah, I was really surprised by just how touched I felt by it. So that, it's great film all around by several different categories.
I'll say, just on your comment about like another zombie movie, kind of connecting emotionally like this. There isn't one. The only like other zombie kind of content that I would say I had a similar feeling. And again, right now, video games and movies are kind of like, the storytelling in video games is so up that you can kind of compare them. Obviously, you sit with them with, longer periods of times. Games have like, 20 hours of content. So it does make it a little bit easier when it comes to storytelling. But The Last of Us is something that the story and how you connect it to the characters. And again, it is zombie related. That's really the only thing I can think of that kind of sits comparable to Train to Busan as far as how you connect to the characters in this type of movie, because it just doesn't happen often where you have that type of connection. Yeah, that I was thinking about it earlier, and that is the only thing that's in this realm that I had that kind of emotional connection to.
See, and I was thinking of, I can't think of the name of it now, the movie with Will Smith.
Oh,
I Am
Legend.
Really?
I feel the emotional in that one. One, because of the dad-daughter moments, which I am a huge sucker for. So all those flashbacks breaks my heart. Two, with the damn dogs, because I've got dogs and they are basically my babies. And so that breaks my heart. It's making me tear up just thinking about them, because I don't actually have a daughter, so it's hard to think about that. But my dogs, I tear up thinking about it. I'm like, oh, crap. So that, and then just with the, like, his emotion and, like, stuff at the end. That was why I was like, I don't know if this is my favorite. Because for the I Am Legend, I don't think it's as good of a movie. I think Train to Busan is a better movie, but I think that was one of the ones, like, I don't know if it's like more of a nostalgia thing, or if it was like my first like encounter with a zombie movie where I was like, damn, like I actually like these, because for the most part I'm not a zombie movie person. But that was probably one. Plus it was one of the ones where I wasn't just gore, it was more story based, all this other stuff. Anyway, but that was one that emotionally would get me.
Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of I Am Legend. It just.
Oh, plus the isolation stuff, like all of his like just being alone and all of that is more emotional. But yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and shift gears and start talking.
What was it called? What's the second one?
Seoul Station. So, forgive me also if I'm not pronouncing.
Yeah,
Seoul.
I was gonna say because it is it's a Korean city.
Yeah.
So I have no clue if we're pronouncing that right, but that's just how it looks like it should be pronounced.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Seoul. Hit us up in the comments if we're not doing it right. But especially watching them like back to back, Train to Busan first and then Seoul Station afterwards. It was very underwhelming to me personally. I felt like I'll sum it up as this. There was two things that bothered me. One, I felt like throughout basically the whole film, the writer set up the characters to make poor decisions over and over again. Even if it was as simple as just like having such a slow reaction to events happening before you decide to run or something like that. Or also like something what was the other thing? Oh yes. Just being after like recognizing that they respond to sound, still hollering and keeping like the same level of noise with like everything you say. That just those are like small examples, but there's so many of them that it just got to the point like what are you guys thinking at this point? Like you know better. And then the other aspect of it is I didn't care for the twist in the third act at all.
Really?
I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a good surprise. It's a very good, well done, you don't see it coming surprise, at least in my estimation. I just didn't care for it. I just didn't like how it felt. Okay. And I'm okay with things tending more towards darkness and everything like that. It just, I don't know. It just didn't sit well with me. Because it's not like the movie skimped on a dark tone at all leading up to that. It's just, I didn't feel like it needed to double down in that. I don't know if you heard, but I was saying the reveal or twist I was referring to was the identity of her father.
Okay. Yeah. Because there's that reveal, and then granted, if you pay attention to the movie, there's the reveal that she does become she becomes infected at the end of it and basically kills him. But if you pay attention to the movie, like you kind of see that one coming. But until you get that reveal that who this guy basically, if you haven't seen it, the movie starts off where this young woman, she's with her boyfriend. They get into an argument because he tries to pimp her out, so that they can pay.
Those everyday fights,
yeah. Just one of those. I mean, honestly, the way they put it, it did seem like it was a reoccurring argument between the two. So, he tries to pimp her out so that they could pay their bills. You find out that she was a prostitute before she met him, but he kind of rescued her, or not rescued her. She left the brothel that she was.
Ran away.
She ran away, and then they found each other. And I guess he figured, you're already a host, so we might as well do what we got to do to pay bills. So
if one of us is going to do it, it's going to be the one with experience.
Right?
So, put it out there.
I do, I will say, the one thing I found, I guess it's kind of bad that I found it slightly funny, but I always find it hilarious in a sad way. I'll put it that way before people are like, you're just crazy for finding that funny. When dudes are totally okay with like slapping around women, but then they act like such a little bitch when it's another dude that starts slapping them around. Because
that's happened here.
Yeah, because in the movie, he kind of slaps her around a little bit in the beginning when she's like, no, I'm not going to prostitute myself. And he, rushes off. He's angry. But then when he meets her, father, and granted, I will admit, I guess like the father's aggression is like your first sign that maybe something's not right with that relationship either. But you also have the understanding of, well, he is trying to find his daughter, and there's a zombie outbreak.
And he also knows that she's being pimped out, at least trying to. So it makes it reasonable that a dad would react that way.
Yes. But his aggression towards the boyfriend, pimp, whatever you want to, I don't know what to call a relationship like that at that point. But the aggression that the father has towards him, and he acts like such a little bitch. But it's like literally 2 hours ago you were okay smacking her up. Obviously it's because she's not really going to do anything, but I just find situations like that. It's just like, okay, yeah, you're really a little bitch, and that's, it just makes me chuckle a little bit. That's it. It's
ironic. It's ironic.
Yes. But yeah, it's the third act, I personally liked it. It's because you don't see it coming. You just do not see this guy acting, says he's her father, and yes, I guess he says daddy, which we know in that realm can be used on multiple different, it has multiple different definitions.
Just a random rambling point. I do not get that whole thing.
I don't get it either.
I'm not a fan of that. I don't get it.
I don't get it.
I don't get how it could sound like how somebody can talk to somebody that is not your father figure like that. I don't know.
So I have two different kind of feelings towards this. There's the in the pimp situation, I kind of don't get that. Either way, why would you A, want to call that person your daddy, and B, why would you want to be called the daddy? Because daddies are they're supposed to be compassionate, caring, and you're literally the complete opposite. But
he cares, in his own way. He cares.
Not about the person.
About the person. He got real upset there at the end when she was starting to die. He was all choking up.
No, I'm talking about in general. I'm not talking about necessarily him per se. I'm just talking about the idea of a prostitute and a pimp. The pimp generally does not care about the prostitute.
No. I mean, to some extent, yes. In order to continue to make money.
Yes, they care about the money, not the person. It could be any. It could.
Byproducts.
Are we really gonna break down the pimp game? Is that what we're doing for everybody at home? Just break it down.
If you don't know what a prostitute and a pimp is, here you go.
How the relationship should be, the parameters of it.
Anyway, please continue. So that's the one side.
Yeah, and I won't go into the other one.
Okay, fair enough.
But anyway, so I like the third act. Again, because it was just kind of such a huge just left turn. Just I'm literally watching and I'm like, oh man, this guy's gonna find his daughter. Do I really think it's gonna be a real happy ending? Probably not. But do I at least think that they are gonna get to see each other again? Because it seems like she hasn't seen her father in forever. And so, I'm kind of clinging on to the, oh my gosh, she's going to see her father. And then you just see the terror in her eyes as he walks through the door. And you're like, okay, she was a little bit happier when she thought it was her, when, is this not her father? And then you're like, oh, it is not her father. It is not her parent. Not even a little bit. And I will say the boyfriend, he was a little bit courageous there at the end trying to defend her. Granted, all for nothing because he got his neck sliced.
One quick thing that happens twice with her and with him at the end in the third act. They cry out before they try to land that.
As they're running forward.
So here's the thing. that is not just a this movie thing. That's movies in general. I don't get if you're trying to like sneak up on someone and cause them bodily harm. Why do you say anything in that process? Why does
no, it happens far too often.
Right.
It happens far too often.
And so again, it's not a this movie thing. That's a movies in general. And I never get it. I'm like, I understand when like characters step on something, like if a noise comes unexpectedly, fine. But for sound to come out of your mouth or you to like be breathing heavily when you're trying to do this, I don't get it.
Agreed.
So that is a complaint that I have, but again, it's not a this movie thing. It is literally every movie that does that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Agreed.
Also,
I didn't have anything else.
The state's handling of this situation is just godforsaken. How they treat these people who are clearly not infected yet. And the government's like, nah, we're not really going to take that chance.
Yeah, when they didn't even warn the dude when he got up.
Nothing.
That was my favorite part of the movie.
Or anything. We're just like,
I guess the warning was, hey, we're pointing guns at you and looking at you. Are you sure you want to keep standing there? But I mean, not that they really gave him time. Not that they really give him time to like get down. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they do.
Everybody else had time to spare all movie long, not making fast decisions. They show him, they show the guy shooting, and then we flash back and he's shot. That's it.
Why did you say that's your favorite part?
I liked the part with him down below because he's a homeless guy and the other guy's just being an ass. He was like, "You're all dumb. I'm so good. I've worked for my country." The guy's like, "We all worked for our country. They don't care about us." And he goes up and they get shot. It was just a very powerful moment for me. That was like my favorite. That was the peak for me.
Gotcha.
It was just it was well written. It was moving, and the old guy, I don't know his name either.
Yeah,
she's called him the whole time. I have no idea. Old guy was he was my favorite character in this entire movie because he wasn't an idiot. He actually did stuff. Like he wasn't just a horrible human being, you know. And then his whole big speech moving thing at the end, and then he get killed. Like, oh well, damn. Yeah,
I will admit I was kind of baffled when in the scene with the ambulance. I'm like, how do you guys not understand that? He's trying to tell you, do not go to the hospital. And why do you think that's a good reason to go when people are infected and the ones that are infected are at the hospital? Why would you think that that's a good reason to go there? Especially when the person that's personally interacted with these creatures is telling you, hey, you don't want to do that. You haven't really had a personal interaction with them. But again, it also plays to the how people react when they think that someone is lesser than them. They don't really take their statement at face value. They kind of look at him as oh, you guys are homeless. We're not going to listen to you.
No, we're educated. So we know what's going on.
Yeah. That's how the cops were at first, for sure.
Oh, the cops were fucking dicks.
They were.
They were dicks. Even if they were homeless, that doesn't mean that you can't do your civic duty. Again, I guess I don't know what the civic duty of a police officer is in Korea, but I feel like homeless or not. So yeah, I will say, Chuck, you mentioned in the beginning you didn't necessarily all the dumb decisions that were shown. But I did want to say, I think that speaks to, again, a human nature where that's never you've never been in that situation. You don't, when you're in the middle of it, do you really think about, oh, hey, I know I'm freaking out, but I also need to be a little bit more quiet right now. It's if you're having a panic attack, which is basically what these situations are kind of like, your mind you're not really in that moment of everything you need to do correctly.
100% true. But my thing is, when you're facing that for the fourth or fifth time in the night, then it's okay, man.
I will give you that.
which you should be adjusting to it a little bit by now, to the point that you should at least, you can even start with that, but you need to catch snap. I need to chill.
I'll give you that.
Just nobody has moments like that.
Yeah, nobody does. Even though you see them being like, they strategize around things, like the pimp dad and pimp boyfriend are like, they're like, hey, you go over, you make a bunch of noise, you like distract them, I'll go to the car and then I'll come pick you up on the street. And then the very like next scene that they're in together, they're both making noise when they both together just strategized about this plan, how they were going to make noise to distract them. So that's something where I was like, what the hell are you? I think it was mainly pimp boyfriend, not pimp dad. But still, I was just like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Also that when they were on the phone with her, and she's like, I'm at the station or whatever. And they're like, okay, we'll meet you there.
That was my first sign that Pimp Dad was not okay. Because I'm like, why the hell is Pimp Dad not moving right now?
Yeah, I didn't get that either. I'm like, okay, you're just gonna continue to talk to her on the phone. You're not like actually gonna get in the car and like you know you can drive and talk. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, it's not recommended, but it is possible to do that at the same time.
Pick her up while she's running away from stuff versus just wait for her to get wherever she's gonna go next. She can only go so far on foot.
Right. So yeah, there are some dumb moments. But overall, I do think the movie is it's good. But and again, you can watch it because I did actually want to see if you guys had a different perspective of it watching it after the movie. And I think if you had watched it before, it may not have been as underwhelming. Because not gonna lie, following that up after the actual movie, like yes, it's it's not really comparable. But I happened to watch it. I watched the prequel and then I watched the movie. So you have it by itself, and then you have the movie to kind of just as like I don't want to call it a bonus because it's way more than a bonus, but you actually get the real thing. If I got the real thing and then like this kind of just throw in that they decided to do, like yes, it would be very underwhelming.
Yeah. Because that was my general feel. Is I was more along with lines with you, Sai, where I liked the third act. Like it didn't bother me that it went dark, and it didn't bother me like what all happened at the end. I was fine with that, outside of the stupid moments that take place during that, because I did think, and you're probably right, coming off of Train to Busan, where people were kind of dumb, but you also see people like learn and like. Be intelligent, because I get what you're saying, like everybody's in a panic attack, but at the same time, if my life is on the line, like I am going to be certain about things before I act. Like I am going to think things through. I'm going to keep mental notes for the next time something happens, because I don't want to die. And that happens in Train to Busan. That doesn't happen as much in the prequel. So it's just it's hard, because the way that we watched it, the first one was so incredibly good.
Yes.
And then this one, it is just all the things that were so done incredibly correct and moving and all of that stuff in Train to Busan highlighted how basically all of those moments are missing in the other one. Yeah. Or if they're there, they just aren't done as well, so it feels like they're still missing, even if they are there.
I can agree with that. So I think we can all kind of recommend, if you haven't watched these two movies, and you do plan on it, watch the prequel first and then watch the movie. Because yes, you are doing the anime, a bit of it. Like, don't get me wrong, it's not the greatest anime movie, like, but you are doing it a bit of a disservice if you watch it second. Because it's coming after just a fantastically put together movie that I think, even if the anime was done damn near perfectly, I do still think it probably would have been a little bit underwhelming if you watched it second. But yeah, I think altogether, like, both of them together are fantastic, and I'm quite excited for the sequel. Again, you mentioned this earlier, Chuck, the American version is kind of pointless. Like, I'll have to get more information and probably see a little bit from it. before like I get excited in it. Because right now it just feels like, okay, America's doing something because it's popular somewhere else. That's really good.
That's 100% what it is.
Yeah, and all they're going to do is just take basically the same exact story, like line for line potentially, and just make it on Amtrak, and it'll be train to Chicago or train to LA or
train to Tucson.
Oh, I like that. That's good. Did you hear it?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I will say,
someone hire me.
That's good.
I will say, however, my thought when we were recording, like at the beginning, and we were talking about it, is what if it becomes something where it's a worldwide invasion, where it's connected? Like, yes, it's an American version, but it's connected and it speaks to a worldwide invasion as opposed to just a country.
I can get on board with that.
I hope it's
because then you're not just remaking something because we're trying to make it so white people are more interested in seeing it, as opposed to like, hey, let's work off of this and let's tell it like what's happening in our city. The same way it was, and the not original, but whatever, where they're like kind of happening at the same time, just in different cities. I can get on board with that. That's smart.
Yeah, that's a very good idea. I hope that's what they do. I expect to be just.
Yeah, like, do I expect that to be what happens? No, not even a little bit. But would that be great for? Because I can't think of a movie that's done that. The only thing I can think of was Battle of Los Angeles. We were supposed to get like a Battle of Chicago, a Battle of New York, where it was connected but in different spots, and I don't know what happened with those other two movies.
The first movie just wasn't good, and it didn't do.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I kind of enjoyed it, and it was before I really like dived into everybody's opinion of the movie. So like when I watched it, and then it like all the sequels kind of just went ghost, I was like, oh, okay. I kind of wanted to see what was happening in these other cities. But yes, after diving into it like years later to figure out why they never got it, yes, it was not well received. But I do think it would be just fantastic and an amazing cinema moment if this became something where we got like a train to Tucson, and then there was like a train to Paris or something, and you realize that this is not just one country or one particular location. Like, no, it is basically the next generation of it's basically our next step, I guess you could say, into evolution, and it is impacting everyone. I think that would be really cool, but again, I don't think that's going to happen.
What will have to happen if that does, though, is we will have to depart from the Train to Busan setup, and we will have to kind of get what I was saying, how like typical zombie movies are either gore or let's find a cure, let's figure out why it's happening. If it's not finding a cure, that's like, how did this start? And I feel like if we are going to go internationally, things like that, and one of them is going to have to be like, how did this start? And that's going to have to be the main story. Because also, I don't know how intrigued I would be to watch a Train to Busan basically take place in South Korea, in Arizona, in New York, in France, in other areas of Europe, like seeing that same thing over and over and over again. I don't even know, like, that will make this movie like lose some of its wonder, some of its magic, some of its uniqueness. And so I feel like you will have to depart from that a little bit and eventually go into something where it's like, let's find a cure, let's find a way to stop this, or let's at least figure out how the hell this happened.
So I obviously okay.
What?
No, there was background noise for a second, and so like I was talking, and then I could hear myself talk, and so like it catches you off guard when it's the first time you hear it.
That makes sense. The way you look like you just saw like the zombie get in your room. You're like, oh,
no,
what is that?
I was like, it's coming out of nowhere. It was not happening at all when we, up until that point, and then now it's just stopped. So, yeah. But anyway, so yes, you do have to broaden it. You can't just put it in a singular, you can't put it in a train each time or a plane or whatever. And it does sound like or
the bus to New York.
But it does also sound like that's kind of going to be expanded upon on the sequel, because again, he can't put it in just one. You got to expand it a little bit, and with the sequel seeming like it's gonna show that the whole country is infected. Again, you can't really get that story with just a train.
Yeah.
But I will say you don't necessarily have to focus on too much a cure. Yes, you probably have to focus on or give a little bit more of a backdrop as to how it started. Granted, they did kind of give a hint at the beginning of Busan. I think it has something to do with that chemical leak that they mentioned happened. I think that kind of plays a factor, because it also they give off that that's not the first time it's happened. So for the deer to be infected, I would assume it wasn't from that particular leak. It was probably from a prior one that happened, and it's just kind of snowballed into something bigger. So I don't think you have to focus on a cure per se, because I think you can focus on the fact that it is the next evolution, that there's really nothing that can be done to stop it, and you just show how it affects these people and how they react to it. Because again, that plays on a human nature role of how are these people going to react, how are they going to evolve as their characters as the story continues. But you can also hint at the fact that there's no real stopping this. You can mention that someone may be trying to find a cure, but also make it very clear that that cure is really not going to come, and especially probably not in enough time to stop anything if you do go global, which again, okay. I don't think that's happening.
No, I don't think so either.
As much as I want it to happen, it's not.
Got anything else?
I don't know. The only thing I was thinking is like, I don't know. I haven't watched The Walking Far they look into this, but since I haven't seen it, and I don't know if they do it, I haven't seen any of these zombie stories where they show just like the slow decline of civilization, where we're just like we're looking at it on the micro level, and we're just looking at individuals like struggling to escape, and like new villages basically being formed, and how do they equip themselves to survive. I feel like that could be a way to go, where we're just instead of the trains, we're just following individuals around, like adapting to their environment as we slowly see, nations fall, and just the earth just turn back into just like not even city states, just just groups of people, sporadic throughout. Yeah, tribes. Thank you, tribal.
Yeah, I mean they half-assed do that. Like in I Am Legend, there's obviously a location where people are trying to find the cure and just continue life in that location. But again, it doesn't dive into that deeper than just, hey, there's a location, there are people, doing stuff, but that's really all you get. And that's typically how these movies leave off those situations.
That comes in like at the end,
right.
like the very end. It doesn't. We don't have the movie being that.
Right. I'm saying like if you showed a movie in one of these sets and showing how one of those kind of sites comes to be, that could be interesting. That's something.
I will say, not that I watch it, but that is kind of like The Walking Dead a little bit.
Okay. Well then, all right.
But it can be done better, and it can be done, if you are going to make it a global thing, it can be done bigger as well. But The Walking Dead does kind of dive into kind of tribes of people, and then what happens when those tribes interact with each other, considering there is this backdrop of zombies everywhere. So yes, that is something that they kind of dive into. But as far as movies, no, that's not typically something we get.
Well, then it's not as novel of the show, because I know that show's been on for like 9 years, so they must be doing stuff like that for it to exist.
Yeah.
As long as it has, and they not have come up with a way to kill the zombies. So, yeah. Did any of us have anything further?
No, I think we kind of covered it. Again, can't recommend it enough. if you haven't seen it, and I am definitely excited for the sequel. I'm gonna have to get it again. I think we all kind of have to get a little bit more information on the American version. Not that we're expecting much, but if they do something where it is connected, I would be extremely surprised, but I would be extremely invested.
True.
Yeah,
That'd be a very cool thing to do.
It would be.
Yeah. I'm just ever so slightly.
Oh, I'm not getting my hopes up.
I'm saying I'm slightly positive it could happen because James Wan, who also he's of Asian descent, so that just makes me.
I don't think he has any relationship to like the actual creator, though.
I know, but I'm just saying, just knowing that something, not even if it's from your specific culture, but knowing that someone else of color and someone else that is Asian created this world, and now we're taking and running with it, but just gives me, I don't want to say hope, but like feel like it's plausible, that they want to be very differential and show some homage to it, instead of just doing the typical Hollywood thing and just like recast it with white folks. Let's continue it.
Gotcha.
Truly. That's what I'm trying to get at.
I got you. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't put it at like a 0% chance, but I'm certainly not going to get my hopes up just for them to, thoroughly be crushed when it does not happen.
I guess I'm saying I'm more just because it's Juan, I'm more positive than I ever would be in this scenario.
Because it's Juan, it places it in the realm of possibility, as opposed to or where it would be like, there's no way in hell they do this.
Yeah.
Yes,
big like horror / action person.
If it was like James Cameron, that wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
So I understand that. But yeah, I don't think there's much left we can say on the topic. We, just so you guys know, we are later on in the week, we'll be doing a more news focused episode. There might be a movie review in there if we can get a certain movie series completed by the end of the week for all of us. But certainly a news focused episode is coming.
Yes.
All right. Well, then, I think that's it for this installment. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Definitely go see these movies. Support international cinema. Become a more well-rounded American. It's pretty unique nowadays. But yeah, again, as we're signing off, my name's Charles. We got Kelsey here, and then Sai with us. Thanks so much for listening. Make sure you hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, anywhere you can find us. Let us know that you're watching. Let us know what you want to see.
Yep, and before we go, if you are curious where to find these movies, especially the prequel, it is a Shudder exclusive again, and then Train to Busan. I'm pretty sure you can buy it, but it's also on Netflix. Basically, at this point, who in the world does not have Netflix? So those are where you can find them, and I hope you guys enjoy them. If you do watch them, let us know how you feel. If you've already seen them, again, let us know. But bye, everybody.
See ya.